This is BBC One. Now, a party election broadcast by the Conservative Party.
The first party political broadcast in British history was aired during the 1924 election. Lord Reith, the first Director General of the BBC, wanted the corporation to be a public service broadcaster, and as part of this vision for the corporation, he allowed the three party leaders to each have 20 minutes of radio time to put their case to the public. Whilst the Labour leader, Ramsay MacDonald, and the Liberal leader, Herbert Asquith, chose to broadcast speeches, the Conservative leader, Stanley Baldwin, opted to go for a more personal approach. Speaking to the public from the BBC's studio in the Strand, he delivered his message directly, as if he were speaking to an individual voter, in a style that would preempt the fireside chats that American President Franklin Delano Roosevelt would make famous. By contrast, voters said they struggled to hear the Labour leader, Ramsay MacDonald's speech, over the airwaves, and the Liberal leader, Herbert Asquith's speech, was interrupted mid-floor by the arrival at the venue of Lady Bonham Carter and a rapturous round of applause.
By the voice of the people, Winston Churchill is once again called to guide our destiny at a time of difficult uncertainty.
The move from radio to television happened at the 1951 election, which featured 15-minute slots with the party representatives, one after the other. Despite running out of time for his speech, the Liberal representative, Viscount Samuel, is thought to have come across better by directly addressing the camera when compared to Sir Hartley Shawcross for the Labour Party and Anthony Eden for the Conservatives, who both used an interview format. Again, it seemed that addressing the audience directly was the right approach. Perhaps the first truly modern party political broadcast was Labour's Britain Belongs to You campaign, which was fronted by a young Tony Benn, who had spent a short time working as a producer for the BBC after the war.
It's an election broadcast on behalf of the Labour Party.
This is our television operations room. Throughout the campaign, the leaders of the Labour Party will be speaking directly from here. We've got a sort of permanent staff here. Christopher Mayhew is looking after facts and figures. When there's any interviewing to be done, the questions will be put by Woodrow Wyatt, and I'm going to give some of the news of the campaign. Britain Belongs to You will be on the air in this form 12 times between now and polling day, on sound and BBC and independent television. Tonight, Hugh Gaitskell is here to open our campaign. Tomorrow he sets off on his national tour, and in future programmes we'll be linking up with him from other cities in Great Britain.
Over time, party political broadcasts became more personal, a pattern that persists to today. Perhaps the first example of this was a documentary-style movie that was made about Labour leader Neil Kinnock for the 1987 election. This interspersed clips of him and his family with interviews and clips from his speeches, including a famous speech where Kinnock took on his own party at the 1985 Labour Party conference in Bournemouth.
I'll tell you what happens with impossible promises. You start with far-fetched resolutions. They are then pickled into a rigid dogma, a code. And you go through the years sticking to that, outdated, misplaced, irrelevant to the real needs, and you end in the grotesque chaos of a Labour council hiring taxis to scuttle around the city, handing out redundancy notices to its own workers. I'll tell you, and you listen. I'm telling you, you can't play politics with people's jobs and with people's services.
This personal approach was picked up by John Major in the Conservative Party's party political broadcast for the 1992 election. This followed Major as he travelled back to Brixton in South London where he grew up, an attempt to underline to voters Major's relatively humble origins for a Conservative leader. But perhaps the strongest theme that emerges from Conservative Party political broadcasts is a negative one. Their fixation on the threat that electing a Labour government might pose to ordinary people, as these clips from a variety of elections demonstrates.
And it's good news for homeowners again. Now the lowest of any major European...
There are signs that the feel-good factor's coming back.
Millions of people saw their incomes grow this month as the effect of budget tax cuts came through.
Independent experts are saying that Britain now has the fastest-growing major economy in Europe. But just as things are looking up, new dangers threaten our success. And the worst thing about these new dangers is that they come from somewhere you might think is perfectly safe. New Labour, new danger.
January 1992. Labour is so keen to get into power that they've been making lots of promises. Adding up the cost of all the promises Labour have made to date, it comes to an astonishing £35 billion extra a year. Where would they get this money? They have already announced 8 new taxes, which would amount to the biggest increase in taxation since the war. But it's still not enough. Where would Labour get the rest of the money to pay for their £35 billion worth of promises? From the rich? There aren't enough around to pay for it all, even if you tax them at 98%, as Labour did before. So Labour would have to come up with something else. Something that would hit everyone. To pay for Labour's promises, the average taxpayer would end up being hit by an extra £1,000 tax bill.
Crisis? What crisis? 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 Crisis? What crisis?
In just a little time now, you can decide who's going to run the country for the next 5 years. Over the past 5 years, the Conservatives have taken an economy that Labour left in ruins and started to mend it. Thanks to the British people's hard work, we now have an economy where every day there are 500 more businesses. 1,000 jobs are created, where there are more people in work than ever before. Wages are rising faster than prices, and last year ours was Europe's fastest growing major economy. Now, on Thursday, you can vote for all this to continue, or on Friday morning, wake up to Ed Miliband propped up by the SNP and find this. It's working. Don't let them wreck it.
More recently, the dominance of television media has declined due to the rise of online streaming services and social media, so it has become more necessary to capture interest in a way that wasn't the case in the past. One need only think of the attention given to Boris Johnson at the 2019 election, for example, as he answers a series of random questions and leaves his tea bag in a cup of hot tea. And whatever else you might think about Boris Johnson, what other Prime Minister in Britain's history can you imagine reenacting a scene from Love Actually to warn of the dangers of a Corbyn government?
All of this done and move on.
Vote Conservative on Thursday. Get
I'm
Brexit
sick of this.
done.
What?
All they're arguing, they just need to get it done.
Stop the chaos.
I'll get it. Oh, hi.
Who is it?
It's carol singers.
Give him a quid and tell him to bugger off.
The genre of party political broadcasts has given us some real gems, but my favourite party political broadcast of all time comes from Labour's campaign at the 1997 election. In this broadcast, a father and a child miss their opportunity to vote because of a long wait at the accident and emergency department at the hospital. They get into a taxi home, and the taxi driver discusses the terrible state of the country, and what happens next is absolute gold.
No, Tom. You've just got to face it. The Tories have let you down. Strange, really, because John Major seemed a nice enough man. Hello.
The rain stopped.
Doesn't have to be this way, though, does it? Eh? I mean, the future could be so much brighter. Things can be better.
That's why you have to vote.
It's too late.
Hey, don't worry about that. Have this one on me. And don't you worry either, Becky. Take it from me. Broken wings soon mend.
Where's you gone? Where have you gone?
That's why you have to vote.
We're back where we started.
That's why you have to vote.
Never again.
Can we have a pizza?
Of course we can.
You'll have to cut it up for me.
That's what dads are for.
Britain deserves better. Vote Labour this Thursday.
Well, I do hope you enjoyed the video. Do you have a favourite party political broadcast? If so, perhaps you can tell me what it is and why in the chat. For now, like, subscribe to the channel, and as ever, goodbye and best wishes.